Well animated, but confusing as hell. This is the impression I am left with after watching 12 episodes of Ragna Crimson. After a strong start with compelling visuals and a well-built backstory in the first episode, it quickly fell apart as the story started to jump from one overused cliche to another, with some well-animated fights in between, of course. It was also recommended to me by a certain moron who I shall not listen to anymore. Man called it the next Black Clover. It's like comparing Sakura to Hinata. And before I dive into why you should or should not watch Ragna Crimson, let me give you a brief overview of what this anime is all about. So there's this dude named Ragna. He wants to kill dragons alongside his genius companion Leo, but he is dog shit. Like, compared to even regular dragon slayers, he's just not good. But all is nice and dandy because they're able to handle the low-level dragons that come near their town. But then, Ragna starts getting visions from the future. A future where he loses Leo and becomes a dragon-killing super soldier, but is dead inside, because he could not protect the people he cared about. To stop this fucked up future from happening, future Ragna gives his powers to current Ragna and tells him to prevent the bad shit from happening by killing all the dragons. It is a pretty basic setup for a fantasy anime, but that in and of itself isn't a problem, as there have been many great anime that have a basic as hell setup. Take Black Clover for example. It has the most cliched setup on the planet. Weak guy wanting to be the top dog in a world filled with talented people. But still, it's a very entertaining anime because even if it's simple, it does all the simple things really well. The first and, in my opinion, the biggest problem that Ragna Crimson faces is direction that is all over the place. Everybody talks about manga authors and animators being overworked, which is true, a lot of them are run to the ground. But the most important part of an anime succeeding is a good director. If a manga or a light novel is getting an anime adaptation, that means that manga author has done his job right, and he has built a sizable fan base for that story. But if that same story fails as an anime, that means the original fans and new fans were not able to connect to the same great story. Ragna Crimson faces this exact problem. It started episode 1 so well, showing visions of a dystopian future which made the main character work harder and made him connect with the audience. But by episode 3, we feel rushed past the important details in order to get to juicy fights. But because the story is rushed, the fights don't feel as hype as they should be. Take the One Punch Man fight between Saitama and Genos. It was one of the most hype moments in anime of all time, but it is because we see Saitama hiding his power all the time, and him just unlocking that beast inside gives us chills. Well animated fights without context or reason are quite frankly useless. Problem number 2. The main character is all over the place. His character development is weird as fuck. Like, if I have the memories of myself, a 21-year-old, in my 11-year-old body, I'm not gonna start behaving like my 5-year-old self. That's exactly what this guy is doing. If you have the memory of your future self getting his ass handed to him, why would you run into fighting the exact same opponents with no plan in mind? He sounds and behaves way too naively for someone who traveled back in time. And there's basically no price for gaining his power. I mean, there is, but it never actually hinders him, which makes the setback useless and makes it feel like he became all-powerful without any hard work. And I know I'm contradicting myself when I talk about how he gained his powers and how it connects to you as the audience member, but that's what the anime is doing, and it's annoying as fuck. Basically, everything is recycled content from other great animes. Sudden power-up, check. Naive hero, check. Tsundere heroine, check. Support characters that are annoyed/impressed by the hero and heroine, check. And it may appeal to new anime watchers because they're still kind of unfamiliar with the classic tropes, but it doesn't feel worth connecting to any single character because it just feels like, oh, this is an old character that has been recycled in and packaged, trying to sell the same shit that has been seen 1,000 times. You just feel like you're jumping from one cool looking fight to another with some jokes sprinkled in and not an actual story. Despite all the above mentioned problems, I'm probably gonna stick to the end of the 24 episode season of Ragna Crimson. At this point, I'm 13 episodes in and feel like 11 more ain't that big a deal. And I also recently checked out the manga in a bookstore and it looked pretty good. And so I'm gonna see how this thing ends. Other than these 2 reasons, there have been some upside to the anime itself. And one of the main things that I think I already mentioned so far is the good fight scenes. It's not just a big budget and flashing lights, it's actually well choreographed and I like watching them. Reason number 2, no overindulgence in perverted crap. Look, I get it. You want to keep your audience happy, and when your audience is mostly filled with 13 to 17-year-old boys, you include a lot of big boobs and shit. But that shit feels old, and I'm glad Ragna Crimson isn't doing that. And for guys who are looking for that shit, just go watch porn, my guy. Like seriously, watch battle anime and then go watch porn. Don't try to do both at the same time. The last but most important reason I'm sticking with this anime is how they're portraying their antagonists. There are a couple of standard tropes for an anime antagonist, especially when it comes to shonen anime. Number 1. The simpleton. This is the battle maniac who has no principles and just wants to kill everybody. Number 2. The intellectual. This is the thinking guy who tries to anticipate the opponents or creates evil schemes of his own. And number 3. The psychopaths. Usually the head of the antagonist and has a really fucked up sense of morality or is just plain broken in the head. Other than these guys, there are the side characters like the occasionally older advice guy who is well trusted by the others and such, but these are the usual tropes that are seen in every battle anime. And similarly in Ragna Crimson, all of these tropes play out. However, the relationships and emotions shown between these guys are much more like typical protagonists and are actually more connectable than the main guys, in their own fucked up manner of course. There have been relatable villains in anime before, and Naruto is the anime that comes to my mind, as Naruto keeps using talk no jutsu on everybody, but they never show relationships between villains after they've gone evil, which they do in Ragna Crimson, which in its own way is very refreshing to see, and this anime is still at its halfway mark, and there have been many anime that end up well after taking a look at the full 24 episode season. But if it's going to continue with what it has right now, then it's just going to end up as a mishmash of well animated fights with some cliches thrown in the middle. People like to shit on simple anime like Black Clover and My Hero Academia, but there's a reason they're successful. Ragna Crimson is an anime that wants to be like Black Clover, but is failing miserably. Thanks for watching and see you next time.